All right, Shalom Aleichem, everybody. Today's daf is daf Chav Gimel, and we start Chav Beis Amud Beis over there by Nekevis Eitzel Nekevis. That's what we stopped yesterday. It's around 15, 20 lines in the bottom. Nekevis Eitzel Nekevis. We're talking about that you're not allowed to park your animal in a non-Jewish inn, right? If you're staying overnight in a non-Jewish inn, don't park your car outside, i.e. your animal. You know why? Because in the middle of the night, this non-Jew is going to mate with your animal, and you'll be over and lifnei iver by facilitating that aveira. So the Gemara wants to know, nekevis eitzel nekevis my time limachdinon, right? If we're worried about sodomizing, right, bestiality, or you're worried about mating an animal with a non-Jew, that can only work between a male and a female, either direction. But if you have a female non-Jew, and a female animal, why can't you be miyachid? Why can't you park your animal there? There's no chashash. We're not suspicious, or there's no possibility, rather, of having them mate. Right? They're both females. I'll tell you, there's another chashash. You know why? Because male come visit their friends' homes, and they hope that they won't be home, right? The husband won't be home. And then they will be mazana with their husband's wives. And sometimes they come, right? The guy comes knocking on the door, right? And they don't find the husband, and they don't find the wife either. But you know what? Oh, the donkey's home, right? And what happens? Raiva takes care of his needs with the donkey. So Amela, you're right. It's true that a female and a female is no issue, but what's going to happen, the female animal, right, the female animal of the Jew is going to be hanging out at that house when the guy, the neighbor, knocks, and he's not going to find the female person, the Avdei Kechavim, and he's going to find this animal, and he's going to do it. Yibay Seima, another teretz, Afilu Moitza, even if she's home. Nami Rav, he'd rather mate with a Jewish animal, the animal of a Jew. The Omer Mar, because we say, Chaviva Alein Behemten Shel Yisrael, a guy would rather be with the behemah that belongs to a Jew than Yosem and the Sheseyan, rather than with their own women. That's unbelievable. So here, that's why the halacha is that you're not allowed to park your donkey in the home, in the parking lot of a non-Jewish female even. Why? Because they prefer your donkey over her. That's why, because...
It makes sense. But, there was once an interview with Charlie Sheen.
Okay.
So he got divorced, and he was going out with, he used to go with like parts of it.
Okay.
So he said, what do you do? You have to pay for it. He goes, that's exactly the point. I pay and I'm done. I don't have to go and... So here, you have to go talk to the guys about this,
right.
this,
yeah,
that,
you do it, yeah, you take care of your needs in the...
nobody knows. So 10 minutes, the guy's done.
Unbelievable.
So they explain it. That's what they prefer. They don't want a headache.
Right. Okay. Wow.
Right?
Now, by the way, there's a svara over here, Mo. One reason is because what you're saying, but there's another svara.
Yeah.
The Gemara says, the Omar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said, why would they prefer, unbelievable, why would they prefer a Jewish animal, an animal of a Jew, over their own wives? When the Nachash came onto Chava, Hittelba Zuama, right? We know, Chazal tell us, that really when it says, HaNachash Hishiani, right? The Torah says, Chava said, the Nachash misled me. The word Hishiani also is Hisiani, married me. From the word Hisiani. So Mamela, when the Nachash had relations with Chava, he put into her this poison, this Zuama. And therefore, it transferred to future generations. And Mamela, that's why a guy would rather be with what belongs to a Jew who does not have the Zayama, rather than being with a non-Jew. Gemara says, oh, 1 second. We also come from Chava, right? All of us come from Chava. It's not just non-Jews. Yachi Yisrael Nami. Even a Jew. Why is a Jew any better? Right? Also, a Jew became Tameh from that episode. Says the Gemara, no, Yisrael sha'amdu al har Sinai, paskuzu amasan. We got cleansed. When were we cleansed? We were cleansed when we stood at Har Sinai. Ayel asking me, we did the egel afterward? Yeah, we did the egel afterward. Teretz is, no, we did the egel. It's true. We did the egel, so we got soiled again. But we didn't get soiled to the point that we were soiled earlier, beforehand. We still achieved some level of tahara. That's why by Dayenu, right, we say, Ilu kervanu lifnei har Sinai, v'le'nosim l'nasatara Dayenu. Everybody asks, what do you mean? Ilu kervanu lifnei har Sinai. What happened at Har Sinai that would have been so gavaldig if we didn't get the Torah? And Teretz is, by Har Sinai we would have gotten cleansed. Just simply standing at Har Sinai cleansed us from the Chet Eitz Hadas and from the Zuama that the Nachash was Matal and Chava.
But even before then, that means like Avram and Yitzchak, they were. That's what it seems like.
Ooh, aha. That's what it would seem like. Yeah, that's what it seemed like. But then by Har Sinai, huh?
It didn't affect the neshamas at all.
It did affect their neshamas, but we got cleansed by Har Sinai. It could be that they were taka still in that category of Avdei Kechavim in the sense that they had Zuama, but they were cleansed by Har Sinai. But Avdei Kechavim shalom lo Har Sinai lo paska Zuamasan. But Avdei Kechavim that didn't stand in Har Sinai, they didn't never got cleansed from their tumah, and therefore the goy prefers to be with a Jew, or at least with the animal of a Jew, yeah, rather than being with their own because they still have Zuama. And that's why you cannot be meyachid with nekevis, itzel nekevis. You can't even give over a female animal to a female non-Jew, because what's going to happen is the male of the Kechavim are going to prefer the female animal of a Jew over their own wives.
It doesn't have the impurity.
It doesn't have the impurity. Well, if it
If
belongs to a Jew, that's a good point.
Impurity goes away.
That's a good point. What you're saying is, it's a behema. After all, it's a behema. So why? He's asking, Mo's asking good. He's saying, what does the behemoth have to do with it? We got cleansed from the impurity of the Nachash, or the Nachash transferred into Chava. But the behemoth, just because it's owned by a Jew, that's also...
For them, it's like
Status.
alias madrega.
Ah,
That's for the goy.
right.
Because for his wife and the behema, it's not different for him.
Yeah. Okay, that's what you have to say. You have to say sort of to what...
So now he's going to be with
what
the
Reb
behema
Shaul
over
is
here.
saying.
For him, it's aliyat madrega.
Is that what you're saying also, Doctor? What were you saying?
You're saying that their tibers are tibers of a tumor.
Right.
Because of the zuhuma.
Right.
That transferred.
Right.
Their tibers still is part of their existence.
Right.
It's got nothing to do with the hema. They have a tiber.
Right. There's a couple of interesting taisvos.
To the animal belong to Yid. That's the type. That's the type.
It's low.
It's forbidden. Mind you doing it too.
No, because the Nachash HaKadmoni, that Srach, the Nachash HaKadmoni is still part of their existence.
It seems like maybe Taisvos is bothered by what you're bothered with, Mo, because if you take a look at the last line in Taisvos, one before the last, it says the Omar Chaviv Aleim Behemtem Shal Yisrael, right? Say that they would rather be with a behema of a Jew than with their own wives. It says Taisvos la noida l'ri meicha nafke ikar davar zeh. He's not sure where do we know this from? Like this idea that even the behema of a Jew they'd rather be with than their own wives. The next Taisvos also is very interesting because we're saying anyone who stood at Har Sinai was cleansed from that impurity. So Taisvos says, "V'nira de geirim nami," even converts. The Paskaz Hamasan, they also achieved that purity because Mishan de Afagav de Inu lehavu, even though they themselves weren't there, Mazlayu have their mazel, which means the angel, which is in charge. Yeah, the angel is always in charge of the mazel. Is an angel that's in charge. So their angel, their guardian angel, so to speak, was there, and that influences the ger and purifies him. Okay, so either way, that's the end of that Gemara. Now the Gemara wants to know, what about birds? Now we talked about animals. You can't have animals, you can't park your animal in the parking lot of a non-Jew because we have to be afraid for bestiality. But what about oifis? Says the Gemara, Toshama. The Amar Rabbi Yoel Gold Shem Chanina, Ani re'isi oivet kechavim, shelo kechavaz min hashuk. I saw a non-Jew that took an avaz, what's avaz? Geese? A goose? Ravo, and really sodomized it, chanokah, choked it, slaw, and then roasted it, va'achla, and ate it. Even worse, the Arabs are even worse. What did the Aravi do? Shelakach yerech min hashuk. It wasn't even alive. It was like a piece of meat. V'chokak ba, and basically carved into that piece of meat, carving in kedei revia, so he could sodomize it. Rava, and he sodomized, he mated with it, this inanimate piece of meat even, slaw and roasted it.
Maximizing his purchases.
Maximizing his purchases. Yeah, this is what this Aravi did. So the Gemara says that even oifus, you cannot park your oif or give your oif to a non-Jew.
אם זה היה לפיד, הוא היה גולה.
Oh, so the Gemara says, yeah, we're above it. By the way, that's what the Gemara said earlier, yesterday, doctor, that they're not afraid of us. That's why we can't give our animal to a non-Jewish shepherd, because they know that we don't even think about these things, and we'll never suspect that they did anything. But a non-Jew, what? Let's learn now that we're learning the sugi, right? Yeah, but even as we're learning, the doctor's saying he's in disbelief. Like, what's going on over here? Yeah. Right, Bechol is like, these shiurim are rated R, Rabbi. What are we doing? Okay, Ravina Omar Loi Kasha. Now we're going back. We're on Daf Chav Gimel, and now we're going back to a contradiction the Gemara asked earlier. The contradiction was, are we suspicious of a non-Jew that he would sodomize an animal, a Jewish animal, right? On the one hand, we have a Mishnah. The Mishnah says that you're not allowed to park your animal in a non-Jewish inn because we are suspicious of non-Jews doing it with the animal. And then there's another brisa that says you're allowed to buy an animal from a non-Jew to bring as a carbon. Why? Because we're not suspicious. So we have this contradiction, right? This tension between a Mishnah and a brisa, and we're going to try to answer it in a few different ways. Ravina says Loi Kasha. It's not a kasha. The Mishnah that says that you shouldn't park your animal in a non-Jewish inn. Why? Because we are suspicious of them doing revia. That's l'katchila. L'katchila, don't do it. When the Brisa says that you could buy an animal from a non-Jew and you don't have to be suspicious that maybe he did something wrong with the animal, that's b'diavad. That's after the behema was very in the rishus of the kechavim, and then you don't have to be afraid that that's what he did. So in other words, you have to be afraid for the future, right? You can't l'katchila put your animal into a non-Jew's position, right? Into a non-Jew's domain, because we're afraid the non-Jew is going to, so to speak, violate the animal. But to buy from present tense, from now on, right? I don't have to think to the past, but the Eved, to think maybe he already did it. That we don't do. Future, yes, we're afraid the katchila in the future, but the Eved not.
You have a chashash.
So I think that we can rely on a chazaka that probably he didn't do it. But if you can prevent it, lahaba, lakatchila, there the chashash is enough. There's enough of suspicion to say don't give it to him. But once he already had it and you want to get it from him, to be choishish that something happened in the past, for that the suspicion is not strong enough to uproot a chazaka. How do you know that we can differentiate between the Avid? We learned in the Mishnah, the halacha is, the Mishnah says that you can't have a Jewish woman, right, be miyachid with a non-Jew, be alone with a non-Jew, we're suspicious of a rayas. Raminu asks the Gemara, I have a steer from another Mishnah Ksuba, a woman that was captured by a non-Jew, right? Why was she captured? Because she owed money she couldn't pay back. Muteris labayla. So the husband comes and pays up, right? He makes a quick fundraiser, pidyon shvuyim, and GoFundMe. Yeah, what are the other ones? Chesed, whatever, and Chesed fund, and they raise the money, and they release his wife. Now the shaila is, was she violated by this non-Jew? Is she muteris labayla? So the Mishnah Ksuba says that if she was held captive over monetary matters because she owed money, then when the husband pays back, then she's muteris labayla. We don't have to be afraid that he did something to her. Al yidei nefashis. But what if the reason why she was held in prison, she was imprisoned, is because of nefashis, because she was sentenced to death for whatever reason? Then asur labayla, and somehow she got out of it. Then she's asur labayla. So the Gemara says, what do you see from here? you see from here that by Mammon, she's Materis Labaila. Why is she Materis Labaila by Mammon? Must be because that's B'di'evet. There's a chiluk in B'di'evet. Because our Mishnah says you were suspicious of Arias. And that Mishnah says for Mammon, it's not a problem. Materis Labaila. How do you reconcile these two Mishnayos? Must be lav Shma Mena Shai Shma Mena Shai L'Katchila B'di'evet. There's a chiluk between L'Katchila B'di'evet. Gemara says not so fast. Mimai. How do you know that that's the answer to these two Mishnayos? To answer these two Mishnayos, maybe I'll tell you. Afilu di'avad namilo. Usually, even b'di'avad, we're not mater a wife to her husband after she was misyached with a guy, because we are suspicious of Arias. V'hocha, but over here, the reason why by Mammon, the guy, we know the guy didn't do anything to her. Haina time, you know why? The misyare mishnah hefsid mamaynai. This guy wants to get paid. He's not interested in her. The only reason why he captured her was because he wants to hold her as ransom, right, to get the money. So if he violates her and somebody will pick up that he did something here, then you're not going to, like, reminds me of, Gaza, right? Like, if they want to negotiate with Israel, they got to keep the hostages alive. They got to take care of the hostages. So here too, that gives them more leverage in negotiations. So here also, the reason why we're not choishish that the guy did anything to this guy's wife is because he wants the money. And if he's going to violate her, then he loses leverage and he might not get his money. So therefore, we're not suspicious in this case. Teida, bring you a right that that's the only reason why by Mammon we're not suspicious. The Ktani Sefer, because the Sefer says, that if she was sentenced to death, then Avodah Zarah Labaila, even b'di'evet. So you see from there, you see that you cannot be mechalik, you can't differentiate between like Tchila and di'evet. Okay, so as of now, Gemara doesn't have an answer. How do we reconcile the Mishnah that says that you cannot park your animal in the inn of a guy, and another Mishnah that says that you could buy an animal from a guy for a carbon? Sounds a contradiction. Why aren't you suspicious that he may have sodomized with the animal? So the Gemara says, I have another answer. It's really a machlokas tanoim. This shaila, this contradiction, in the Mishnah it seems like we're suspicious that a guy did mate with an animal, and in the Brisa it sounds like we don't. We're not suspicious. That's why we can buy an animal from a guy and be makriv as a carbon. Loikasha. It's not a contradiction, because it's actually machlokas tanoim. Hara b'liezer, hara banan. Yeah, let's see the Mishnah. Mishnah and Parah. Ditnan, gaba paras chatos. Anybody know what a paras chatos is? What's a paras chatos? Paras chatos is another name for a para aduma. Right? It's called a paras chatos. Rabbi Eliezer says, you're not allowed, when you want to get a para aduma, you're not allowed to buy it from a non-Jew. Bechol is already asking from Double Medicina the story that they bought. Yeah? I heard your mind? Yep. Yeah, right there, man. Okay, I guess I got it wrong the first time, so I'm 1 out of 2. So, Ditnan, Poras chatas Rabbi Eliezer oimen in nekachas ein in nekachas with Ovdi Kachavim. You're not allowed to buy purchase a paraduma from Ovdi Kachavim. Chachamim matirin. Chachamim say it's motir. Now, if I asked you what's the source of their machlokes, what are they arguing about? The Eliezer says that you can't buy, and the Chachamim say you could buy. What's the machlokes? Says the Gemara says, "My lab, I'll tell you exactly what the machlokes is." Rabbi Eliezer says you cannot buy. You know why? Chashina l'revia, because we're afraid that maybe the guy sodomize the animal. We're not chayshish, and that's why you could buy. So you see that it's machlokes tanoim whether you're suspicious if a guy mates with an animal or not. So the Mishnah that says you're suspicious holds like Rabbi Eliezer. The Brisa says you're not suspicious holds like the Rabbanan.
I think I learned that maybe it's in later that it depends the place. If the place is now the goy, this is how they know him. You have to be careful. If the place that did not know, you don't have to be careful.
Aha. Depends on the makom.
Yeah.
Miniga makom.
Yeah.
Whether Revia is a miniga makom.
Exactly.
Like over here, it's not gonna happen.
What?
Jail over here, let's say.
In LA?
No, not in LA. In America, but in Gaza, they're not believe.
In other words, there are places that are more likely to do it.
Or in who knows? All those places.
All the places. Over here, you have more rules. You cannot have whatever you want.
He accepted the standing.
I want to ask you something. Who's going to tell? You have more rules, like the rules holding.
Not the rules.
Who's going to tell? Why? Really? You buy an animal and you have it in your house. Like who's going to know? Who's going to tell? Like that's a reason. The rules. He's saying the rules is still a reason.
I don't know, maybe, but I think it's nothing. I think it's the
culture.
The culture.
I think it's the culture more than the rules. Yeah.
Yeah, culture is a better word.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So Gemara says, and actually it's machlekes tanoim. The Gemara says, "Mimai, how do you know it's machlekes tanoim? Dilma dekulam melechashin l'revia." Maybe the truth is, Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim both are not suspicious that a guy would mate with an animal. V'halcha in the time of Rabbi Eliezer, why is Rabbi Eliezer aser? Why is it it's aser to buy a paraduma from a non-Jew if he's not suspicious that the non-Jew mated with this animal? There is a different reason. The halacha is that if you put even an empty sack on the paraduma, psala, it becomes puzzle. Why? Asher loy ola aleha. Oh, not allowed to put anything on a paraduma. So it's nothing to do that we're afraid or suspicious that the non-Jew mated with the animal. That's not the reason why Rabbi Eliezer doesn't allow you to buy a paraduma of an animal. He doesn't allow you because he doesn't trust that the non-Jew didn't put any oil, any bags, right, on the paraduma. It passes it.
I think we learned it before.
Yeah, we probably learned it in Shavuos. Well, yeah, very good. Ube'egla acha timshech ba. By the way, egla rufa, the pasuk says asher mashcha ba'oil, differently, which also means that you can't pull it with an oil. So ve'egla acha timshech ba. Marsa v'chashinon and marsa v'loy chashinon. Rabbi Eliezer says we're afraid that the guy did it. Marsa v'loy chashinon, that's the machlokes.
Right? There's 2 hairs on the
Right.
paduma.
Yeah, 2 white hairs already apostles. Yeah.
No, there's 2 hairs that stand up.
Red hairs that stand. Every paraduma needs to have those 2 hairs. Simonim.
That was a simon that
The yoke.
they
There's
put a.
Ah.
2 hairs that stand up when they put that was the story. The guy put the yoke on it,
Yeah.
and he thought the rabbis would. They come out the next day and they look for these 2 hairs. And
Very good.
The guy jumped off the roof, right?
Right. That's.
You talk about the 2 hairs over there that have.
You could tell. There's a simon. There's a.
2 hairs that's supposed to be standing straight like sticks.
So
When
you
put
just
the yoke on, they look for those 2. They said they were crumpled.
you just explained to me. Oh, mamish, you just
says it
explained to me. Mamish yefeinaim chaznish. You wouldn't believe it. Look at the next line of the Gemara. The Gemara says, "Loy sol kadaitach." No, you can't say Rabbi Eliezer is not suspicious that the guy maybe put a sack on the animal's back. You know why? If the paraduma is worth $1 million, how much is the benefit of putting a sack on the back of the paraduma worth? $5? $1? You think he's going to waste $1 million for the benefit of putting the sack on the back of the par for a couple of minutes? So if you hear the Mefarshim say exactly what Mo just said, how would he know? How would he know that that's what he did? How would it disqualify if he does it privately? And the answer is there's a simon with the 2 hairs, like you just said.
Says it here.
He brings it on the bottom of the art scroll in 21, but I have a Hebrew art scroll, so that's right. So the Gemara says, asks the Gemara, "Ochanami leima mishmano purta lamapsetuva." Asks the Gemara, let's say over here too, by Revia, why would a non-Jew, right, risk the sale of his animal because he wants to have the pleasure of a fleeting pleasure of mating with a beast, bestiality, right? How long does that pleasure last? Let's just say a couple of minutes. And selling this animal for a hefty price is worth a lot more. So if you're telling me that when the guy thinks about doing it, he's weighing pros and cons, and by paraduma he's not going to do it because it's much more valuable to him to be able to sell it than have a sack on the back of a para. Over here also, it's much more valuable to a non-Jew to make sure that the animal stays healthy and strong and clean, because he can get a high price for it if it stays clean. And he's not going to, for a fleeting pleasure, he's not going to ruin those chances. So the Gemara says, so why don't we say the same svara here? Says the Gemara, no, over here you don't have that svara. You know why? Hasam yitzrei taikfai. There's a yitzahara. Yitzahara will push a guy, will push all of us, right? Fleeting pleasure, and we lose our minds. We lose our seichel. So Hagam, it's true. If the non-Jew would just think about it for a second, it's not worth it. Right? What are you going to be, Reveya Behemam, and ruin the chances of selling it for a high price? And the answer is yes. When we're dealing with the Yitzhahara, Yitzhahara is going to be taikif, and therefore you can't rely on that cheshbon, that the guy would have made that cheshbon. Says the Gemara, asks the Gemara, asks the Gemara, maybe I'll tell you Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim, both are not suspicious for Revia. So why is Rabbi Eliezer it's aser? The Tanishila, my time there, Rabbi Eliezer, it says in the pasuk, Daber el bnei Yisrael v'yikchu elecha. It says by Paraduma that the bnei Yisrael should take, right? Kicha. Bnei Yisrael yakichu Ve'eino yikchu yakichu. Yakichu, you can read yikchu yakichu, which means you have to have a Jew sell it to you, but a goy cannot sell you a parah aduma. So Rabbi Eliezer says, you know why you can't buy it from a goy? Nothing to do because we're suspicious of Raviyah. Nothing to do with anything. It's because the pasuk says, "D'albrim they saw v'yikchu," and we darshan yikchu is yakichu, that you have to have a Jew sell it to you and not a non-Jew. So the Gemara says, no, lo yisal gedaitich. No, you don't want to say that. That's also not a good svar in Rabbi Eliezer. That's not why he passes it. The Ktani Sefer, because it says in the Sefer, "V'chein Rabbi Eliezer poisel b'chal karbanos kulan." Rabbi Eliezer passes all karbanos, not just the parah aduma. If you saw kedaitich, then you tell me kedetana shiloi bishloim beparah ksiv bakicha. I understand why parah is no good to buy from a guy, because over there by parah aduma it says kicha. Elakulu karbanos kicha ksivu. What about other karbanos? It doesn't say kicha there. Why wouldn't be able to buy it from a non-Jew? So that can't be the reason why Rabbi Eliezer passes by parah aduma, because then he should kasher all the other karbanos, because kicha is unique to parah aduma. Gemara says, "V'dilmat kan lepli Rabban Rabbi Eliezer." Asks the Gemara, "Kicha kicha is the Ephron, right? Very good, very good." So the Gemara says, "V'dilmat kan lepli Rabban Rabbi Eliezer." Maybe there are Rabbanan who say that you are allowed to buy a parah aduma from a guy. That's only ela b'parah. It's only about parah aduma that the meha yekarin, because the guy doesn't want to lose out the opportunity to sell such an expensive parah. So therefore, he's mizgaber in his Yetzirah, because it's like we're dealing with millions of dollars, right? A parah aduma is worth more than anything else, more than any other cattle. So there, he's mizgaber in his Yetzirah. Avol b'shar karbanos moidulei. Maybe the Chachamim are moided to Rabbi Eliezer that by other karbanos you cannot buy behemoths from a guy, because there the guy doesn't make such a cheshbon. The guy is suspicious of being reveya. It's only when it's really expensive and the opportunities are really great, that's where the guy stays away. Gemara asks, "Ve'elo atani loichem behemoth lekarbon mani." The Brisa says you could buy a behemoth lekarbon, right? We just quoted earlier. Mani loy Rabbi Eliezer v'loy Rabbanan. According to this, if Rabbanan agreed to Rabbi Eliezer that by other karbanos, by other behemoths, you can't buy from a guy because we're suspicious of Reviyah, so then oy bazoi, who's the Brisa going to be when the Brisa says there's one Brisa says loichem behemoth lekarbon? V'oy Tanya behadya. We actually learned before in another Brisa. Maya sivu lechavroi. What did the Chachamim answer to Rabbi Eliezer? Right, when he paskined that other behemoths also for karbonos, for other karbonos you can't buy from a guy, they quoted him a pasuk in Yeshaya. It says, "Kol tzoin kedar yikaf tulach yalu l'rotzen al mizbechi." That means kedar. Who are kedar? Kedar the bnei Yishmael. And it says that for karbonos you can buy behemoths even from bnei Yishmael, right? And we're talking about bnei Yishmael here. Bnei Yishmael are the Aravim, and we just said the Aravi. They're Yasar kabin shel znus yard l'olam tisha natlu. Ishmaelim, and the Gemara says the story that they bought a piece of meat and they were just an inanimate piece of meat. So certainly, if the pasuk says they could still buy from Bnei Yishmael to bring to karbanos, then obviously it's mutter by other behemoths. The Gemara says, so what is the machloikes at kan lo pligi ela b'chashasha? The chashash, whether the goy sodomizes his animal or not. But if we know for sure, that the guy was with the animal, pasla, then everybody agrees that it's pasul for the mitzvah of parah aduma. Asks the Gemara, Shema Mino, what do you see from here? Shema Mino, the parah, kachem izbeyachi. You see from here that the parah is really kachem izbeyach. Why? Do you kachem bedek abayis? Mean mafsala beravia? Now, we had the sugya in Shavuos. What is the difference between kachem izbeyach and kachem bedek abayis? There are two types of kachim. One is mizbeach. What does mizbeach mean? The gavoa, which means what?
It could be put on the mizbeach.
Brought on the mizbeach, right? You makadosh, you're makdash an animal, right? And then you bring it onto the mizbeach as a carbon. You say rezu oila, rezu chatas. That's kachim mizbeach. Kachim bedek abayis is money or any shavak kesef that you can sell and give them money to. Oh, so really, if Pesach is asking, what do you mean? Well, how could parah aduma be kachem mizbeach? Parah aduma doesn't go on the mizbeach. You know what you do with the parah aduma, right? You burn it in Har HaZeisim, right? Yeah, so how could the Gemara say that Shema Mino, parah aduma is kachem mizbeach? What does that even mean?
It's only 9, I think, and when the Mashiach is going to come, it's going to be the 10th.
There are only 9 parah till now.
And the Mashiach is going
The
to come,
10th.
it's going to be the 10th.
Wow. Okay. Amazing. You know, they had a story, I think, was it in Lakewood?
Yeah.
In Lakewood? They have even in Eretz Yisrael, they have a farm now.
They said they have 3.
They have three paradigmas. The only problem is, I think that past 2 years old, Finish. So
Chosuzman.
what?
Chosuzman.
Chosuzman.
I think I saw someone on a train ride.
With what?
I saw one on my train ride too.
No way, really. A para aduma.
Grazing.
No, but
It's
I
not
mean,
that
there's no
doom. I think
milkshake
it's like
candy.
Orangey. Yeah, orangey. Orangey. Right, right. Yeah,
There's no such
Over.
thing.
Gingy. Yeah.
Adom.
So the Gemara says that if Revia passes the para, then it must be that the para aduma has a status of kachim mizbeach, not kachim b'dekabayis, because kachim b'dekabayis doesn't become possible with Revia. So if we're saying that if it's vaday rava, then it's psula l'divrei hakoil, everybody holds it's psula, then it must be that we consider the para aduma as kachim mizbeach. So the Gemara says, no, really I'll tell you that para aduma is only kaddish b'kedushas b'dekabayis. Now, why is it possible b'revia? Usually, bedek abayis doesn't become possible with revia. Shani para, no, para dum is unique in the sense that it's bedek abayis, but it's still possible b'revia. You know why? The chatas kari rachmana, because the Torah says lamei nida chatas he calls the para duma a chatas. So once the Torah labels the para duma as a chatas, that means it has a din of kachim mizbeach with regard to possible b'revia. That if there's revia, it becomes possible. But really, the inherent status, of course, is bedek abayis. It's just with regard to the halacha of revia, it has a din of mizbeach because the Torah calls it a chatas. Asks the Gemara.
Have a dinner better bias is the main of the base of
For money, for mammon.
You have to be part of it.
It's the kupad, goes into the.
You're not using the actual.
For mammon.
You're just gonna put it into money.
Sometimes they do. If let's say it's a brick that could be used to repair the Beis Hamikdash.
What's part of for the use of the business?
Right, no. So it has kedusha. It means the level of kedusha. It's a lesser kedusha. It's kedusha's bedek abayis. Gemara says elam me'ato. If you're going to tell me that it's called the chatos and therefore it's possible b'revia, now it should have other psulim as well. Elam me'ato te possible b'yoytze doifen. It should also be possible b'yoytze. Anybody know what yoytze doifen is? What's the yoytze doifen? What is that? Cesarean section, right? C-section. Why? Because in order to be kosher lemizbeach, any animal has to be born in the regular, natural way, right? Because it says in the pasuk, it says, "Shor oikesav eis ki yevaled," right? It has to be born naturally. If an animal was born mitoich yoytze doifen, right, was born in an unnatural way with a C-section, then it's pasul lemizbeach. So once you're telling me that the Torah calls a para aduma achatas, and that's how we treat it as kachem mizbeach. So if so, a para aduma that's a yoytze doifen should be puzzle, right? A para aduma that wasn't born naturally, but puzzle. If you're going to tell me it's true that it's puzzle, Allah matanya, why are we learning the brayse? Kedisha b'yoytze doifen psula b'shem machshir. B'shem is machshir para yoytze doifen. So it can't be that Chatas teaches you that it's treated like kachem mizbeach. Maybe you're going to tell me Reb Shimon is l'tamei the Omar yoytze doifen vlad ma'al yehu. That by yoytze doifen, by tumas leida, when a woman gives birth, there's a whole shaila. If she didn't give birth naturally, she had a C-section, do the laws of tum and tahara for a yeledes apply to her, right? So Reb Shimon says yoytze doifen vlad ma'alyu. It's a good birth in the sense that she has to follow the rules of tumas leida. She's tuma in the way the Torah prescribes or describes in Parshas Tazria. So the Gemara asks, so maybe it's Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon says,
not considered as a regular birth?
yes, not considered a regular birth.
So what is it considered stam?
Yeah, through the rechem, you come out the natural way. Yeah, but if let's say they have to make surgery,
And therefore, she's not.
so if it's not a natural birth, so by behemoths you can't bring it to the mizbeach. An animal that was born in such a way, you can't bring it to the mizbeach. If a woman gives birth in some,
Bechor also the same.
it needs to be,
It has to be normal.
aha, very interesting. Okay, Shimon says with regard to tumas leida, that means a woman will become tameh the same way she's tameh if she gave birth normally. So maybe the Tana that says it's kosher by yoytze doifen is the Tana Reb Shimon, because latameh he holds it's a regular birth, has dinim of a regular birth. Asks the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, moed Reb Shimon lein kachem she'ena kaddish. Even Reb Shimon himself is moed by kachem that it's not kaddish b'kedushas karban. So Ibazoi asks the Gemara, if you're going to tell me that a para duma has a din of kachem mizbeach, so it should be puzzled by yoytze doifen, and we find that Reb Shimon is machshir. Reb Shimon says it's kosher. Elo shiny para must be the para is different. Hayil mum poisel ba dvar erva Avodah Zarah nami poisel ba. You know why it's different by para aduma? Why by para aduma do we say that it's treated differently? The reason is, right, with Revia, it's a problem, even though it's Kaddish B'Kedusha's Bedek Abayis, because Mum is Poisel, so Dvar Erva Avodah Zarah Nami Poisel Ba. Once we find the Torah says that it can't have a Mum, even though it's only Bedek Abayis, so Dvar Erva, which means Revia and Avodah Zarah, let's say it was set aside for Avodah Zarah, Nami Poisel Ba, it's also possible. Because it says in the Pasuk, how do we know to equate a Mum with an Erva and Avodah Zarah by Behema, by a Paraduma? It says, Ki Meshchasam Behem Mum Bam. They were mashchis. What does it mean mashchis? What's the translation? Mashchasam bahem? Doctor, what is it? They destroyed mumbam. They have a mum. V'tanu the baby Shmuel. This is the first question. Kol makim shenemar ashchasam eino corruption. Eino dvar erva avodah zarah. You know what true corruption is? It's arayas and avodah zarah. Dvar erva. How do I know dvar erva? D'chsiv ki hishchis kol basar as darkoi ala oretz. Because it says. They're mekalkel by Noach, but the Dora Mabul says the word Ashchasa, and we know what was their Aveira. It says Gilai Rayas. Right? It says earlier, they took all kinds of women. So the Gemara says, you see that Gilai Rayas is called Ashchasa, it's corrupt. Avodah Zarah, how do you know that Ashchasa is also referring to Avodah Zarah? D'chsiv, Pen tashchisun v'asisam lechem pesel. Maybe you will corrupt yourselves and you'll build Avodah Zarah. Gemara says, "Well, para nami, para as well. Once you find the Torah says that it passes with a mum, so dvar erva v'yischavim nami pasli ba also becomes possible with dvar erva and avodas kechavim." Now, Gemara is going to ask Michal's kasha, and we'll end with this Gemara, this Maisa, this last story. Unbelievable. Gufa, Tani Shaila, Sheila learned. My time with Rabbi Eliezer. Earlier in the Brisa we said, why does Rabbi Eliezer not allow a Jew to buy a paraduma from a guy? Yeah, why can't we buy a paraduma from a guy? Because it says in the pasuk, "Daber Yisrael v'yikchu, v'bnei Yisrael yakichu v'einu v'chom yakichu." That means you have to buy it from a Jew, not from a guy. The pasuk drasha asks the Gemara, once you darshan v'yikchu in such a way, elam ata daber al bnei Yisrael v'yikchu litruma, hachanami de bnei Yisrael yakichu v'einu oivdei kechavim yakichu. Yeah, you can't buy from a non-Jew gold, silver, precious stones for the Melech's Mishkan. You only could buy whatever you bought from a Jew. That's what you can bring to the Mishkan. But if you bought it from a guy, you can't do it. They asked Rabbi Eliezer, how far does kibbut of aim go? Okay, how far does kibbut of aim go? This is the Maisa we all know. Chacham wanted to buy precious stones for the Ephod. B'shishim riboy schar, and they wanted to buy for shishim riboy, right? 600,000 dinrei zov. Rav Kahana must have b'shmoinim riboy, 800,000. And v'oy mafteichus menochas dachat b'roshei aviv, and the keys, to the safe was underneath the pillow that his father was sleeping on. V'lo tziarei did not wake him up. And so, what do you see from here? That other than that, if the father would have been awake, then you would be allowed to take the stones from this guy and use it for the Beis HaMikdash. Yeah? So, Ebazoi, I says v'yikchu. V'yikchu truma means you can only buy it from a Jew to bring it to the Beis HaMikdash, the Meshkan, not from a guy. This story proves otherwise. So the Gemara says, no, this is different because Avnei Shoyam. This was Avnei Shoyam for the Ephod, Hifsek Inyan. That really is mafsik from the Yikchu, so it's not a problem. Gemara says, Avnei Melum Ksiv, the other Arve. I just want to stop over here for a second. The Gemara talks about Kibbut Avayim, right? By the way, anybody know why Kibbut Avayim? We know the Luchas is divided in two, right? Ben Odom Lamakim and Odom Lachaveiroi. And they asked, the famous question is, why is Kibbut Avayim on the side of Ben Odom Lamakim? Yeah? What's the reason? Okay, food for thought. Why is that on the side of Ben Odom Lamakim? That's right. Means the source, the reason for being mechabed your parents has nothing to do really with you. It's because it's you being mechabed the Rabbeinu Shalom. The Rabbeinu Shalom and them created shloisha shutfa ba'adam. So it comes from the chiyuv of being mechabed Hashem. Lamaisa, we know that Esav of Russia was the one who excelled in the midst of Kibbut Avayim, right? He was the Gemara Chulun tells a story. Gemara says, I think it was Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel who said that Halavai, right? I should get to the coattails of Esav of Russia that was Mechaber's parents, his father. Doesn't say his mother. Okay, Lamaisa, who was a great grandson of Esav? We know it was Haman of Russia. And who went up against Haman? We know the story. Esther, right? Esther was the one who exposed Haman. Now we know Esther didn't have parents. Megillah tells us she had no father, she had no mother. So Rabbi Yonas Neibshit says, why not? Why did she have a mother and a father? Because if she would have a mother and a father, then what would happen? She wouldn't be able to fulfill mitzvah kibbutz perfectly, and she wouldn't be able to oppose or stand up against the schus that Esav of Russia had in the midst of Kibbut Avayim. So she couldn't have parents. Why? Because this way she was clean in the midst of Kibbut Avayim. She never violated even an iota of the midst of Kibbut Avayim, and that's why she was an orphan. What's really interesting is, and this is to me mind blowing, is that there's always a question with parents. You know, when children get older, I know in Japan they honor their parents by, you know, taking care of their parents when they get older and they move into the house. So it's not always easy on a family, not always easy on children and on grandchildren to take care of their parents as the parents get older. So they went to Rav Aaron Leib Steinman. Rav Moshe Brown from Farakaway. I'm giving them a lesson now, yeah. Rav Moshe Brown from Farakaway went to Aaron Leib Steinman because one of his Talmidim said, look, it's really difficult to take my parents into my house and to really take care of them. You know, it's chaotic. My wife, my kids. Okay, it's not always possible. But when he asked Rav Steinman the question, he said something unbelievable. He said, "Do you know that in all of history, I guess since the Mabul, since after the Mabul, our generation lives the longest. You know, they used to live 500, 600, 700 years, right? 800 years. Right. But afterwards, after the Mabul, Hashem says that the days of a person will only be 120 years. Yeah? The life expectancy of a person will be 120 years. And today, the average lifespan is how long? Of a person in America, at least?
80,
It's not
65 to 80.
You want to look it up?
It's in the
Last
70s,
time I
it's in the
checked.
70s for sure.
Really?
70?
Okay, take a look.
Average.
Look it up. What's the average life expectancy of a person? ChatGPT it.
ChatGPT on.
It's already a
Where
verb.
in the world?
Huh? In America.
I think it's
Right now.
85 and 83, no?
It's in the 80s for sure. Low 80s? Anybody?
77.5.
No way. Let's see, hold on. Average life expectancy in the United States for 2023 was 77.5.
You have also a lot of people die young. You have all these accident.
Average. That's called
Okay, it's
average.
fluctuated between 80 and 70. Okay, so 77 to 80.
Let's say between 75 to 80. Okay.
Either way, ask if this is in history, like I guess in the last 2,000 years, is it the longest people have lived?
Die very young,
Yo,
getting
different parts of the
shot,
world,
and
people live longer.
all those other things. COVID, I mean, the regular is probably.
Yeah.
It is.
Ask. So he said, okay, he's showing me right now that the average life expectancy in America, at least, has been 77 and 80. It fluctuates since 2000 and 2023. We don't know what 2025 is, but I guess you don't have enough data to find out yet. But is it
Roman times is 20 to 30. Pre-industrial
Roman
era is
times
24
20 to 30? Oh, slow.
Pre-industrial era, which is up to 1800, was 24 to 30. So it went down.
It's not 2 years, 2023,
The 19th century was 32. 20th century was 66.8. And then now it's 77.
Crazy. How it went up in 2,000 years. Listen to Rav Steinman said. You need a Godel Adar to say this. This is crazy. Omar Kacha. He said that before Mashiach comes, people will have to live longer. Yidden will live longer, including Yidden. Why? He says because the schus of Esav, we're in Golos Edom, right? Which is Golus Esav. So he says the schus of Esav is kibbut aveim. To counter the schus of Esav, we need to strengthen ourselves in the midst of kibbut aveim. When can we strengthen ourselves in the midst of kibbut aveim? When there's a longer life expectancy. Our parents are living longer lives. And now we have to take care of them, right? We have to go to the doctor with them if they need our help, or take them into our homes, right? So we have, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is making us live longer so we can have the opportunity to fulfill the mitzvah of Kibbut Avim in a way that will counter the schus that Esav of Russia had when he was Mekayim the mitzvah of Kibbut Avim to get out of the Galus, similar to Esther and Malka, didn't have any parents because she had to counter the schus of Kibbut Avim, so she couldn't have parents. But Lamaisa, Baruch Hashem, our parents should live to 120, right? We should all have parents. And,
That's just why did Mordechai...
That's another reason why. Because what does it say in Torah about Kibbut Avim?
what does it say? Yeah.
So Esav was the epitome of Kibbut Av.
Oh,
So we're living now in the Zman of Esav. So that's maybe why we are Marachim, because
right,
we are in the schus of Esav.
right,
We are
Because
Right.
people from the beginning of
right. That's beautiful.
We goes out of people died at a younger age. So why all of a sudden now, just before Mashiach, or just after that whole
Yeah, because we want to extricate ourselves.
That's why Mordechai to be from the tribe of Binyamin, because Binyamin didn't bow down, so they had to counter, right? They
No,
bow down, didn't-
Shaul.
Binyamin didn't
went
bow
from
down
32
to Esau
Benyamini, yeah.
when they met.
Yes.
So now that's why he was the one who took over.
Ah, very good. Excellent, excellent. Yeah. There is a palindrome by Kibbut Avim, just an incentive. I don't remember the words, but if Chaim Kanevsky points out, we talk about the parsha of Esav and Yitzchak and how he spoke to him and what he brought to him. Oh man, I don't remember the words, but there's a palindrome which reads backwards and forwards. And Chaim Kanevsky says, because the way you treat your parents, that's the way your children will treat you. Okay, tremendous chizuk.
Well, Hashem live others on
Abba is backwards and Hima is backwards. The same thing.
Ah,
Abba,
Abba, Ima.
Hima,
Beautiful.
Aleph, Mem, Aleph.
Excellent.